really, we're still talking about this.
Right.
We haven't, this isn't resolved yet, and so that's exactly what emotional detox for anxiety is about. Is we need to stop talking about our emotions and start teaching people how to feel them.
Hey guys, welcome to Speak Audibly's 100% Me podcast. It is your friend Coach Mike, and I am here with the wonderful Sherianna Boyle. Now, just a quick introduction for her before she jumps in. Sherianna is the author of Emotional Detox and Emotional Detox for Anxiety books, and she is an international emotional detox coach and the creator of the Cleanse Method, which I'm excited to jump into. Sherianna, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Mike.
Oh, of course, of course. Now, when I first seen you kind of come up on my radar, I first got a little
Mhm.
hesitant. I was like, "Oh, what is this?" Anytime I see emotional detox, I'm like, "I know what physical detox looks like." My
Yes,
wife is a bit crunchy, if you will, so she's always talking about the juice cleanses and these different cleanses. And so when I see
sure.
emotional cleanses, it really
Yeah.
stood out to me. So begin to kind of break that down. How did you get into the emotions in your books, emotional detoxing?
Yeah. So honestly, it was just pure interest. I had written a book years ago called The Four Gifts of Anxiety. And in that book, it talks a lot about emotions and how we transform them and what they're all about, and what we can gain from anxiety once we transform it. And that sort of was the
Mm,
beginning of, okay, I get it now, but now there's more. I know there's more to know outside of what I wrote there. And so I just kind of continued the journey of researching and asking questions like, what are emotions? What happens when we
mm,
don't feel them? Do they go away? Do they stick around? Why is that? What's contributing to that kind of thing? And how does that impact our physical and our mental health? So
wow,
honestly, it was just pure curiosity. And I had, as an author, I've actually written 9 books now.
wow,
And you always kind of shoot for the big publishers, in your
right.
mind. And Emotional Detox, I had pitched to Simon and Schuster, and they really made me work very hard. And they liked the idea, but they really wanted proof of concept.
For
So
sure.
I really did my due diligence and provided what they needed. And then lo and behold, they picked up Emotional Detox, which means that I'm going to write it for them.
Wow.
And I was all excited because, as I said, as an author, you kind of dream for that. And then about 6 weeks later, I was hit with really the most traumatic news of my life, and it affected my entire family.
Mm,
And I realized, oh my God, like I can't write this book.
mm,
I'm in crisis. Who the heck am I to talk about this? I myself need an emotional detox.
yeah.
So it was crushing, and I had to let them know, and they were great, and they said, "Well, when you can." And I said, "All right." And I didn't know when that would be, Mike. I had no idea when, if that I could even do that. So it turned out to be a blessing because I went through a journey of trying to figure out, okay, what exactly do people need who are in
Yeah.
those, in a crisis, and who are dealing with trauma in their lives. And that's how the cleanse came to be. It was actually, I feel like I channeled it, Mike, through a time where I just was really asking for help and support from my
Wow.
higher guidance. And it just kind of came through me. The cleanse never was intended to be anything. It
Wow.
happened because I realized that people really needed a system to turn to. At least I needed it. And then since then, I've been teaching the cleanse.
Wow. Talk about proof of concept, right? Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. And so now you do cleanse workshops and you're teaching that, and that is just awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, so 2020 being
Yeah.
the year that it was. uh, call it the year
Yeah.
of Jumanji, right? Anything that, or the year of Murphy, anything that could go wrong did go wrong, right? So when it comes to anxiety, I mean, that is such a huge thing,
Mhm.
especially for individuals who understand and know that they are anxious and that they have this anxiety. But then for those who don't even understand what they're dealing with, how do you begin to kind of unpack, like you said in your old book, the gifts of anxiety? How do you begin to unpack anxiety?
Well, yeah, anxiety, it's true. I mean, it's been a year where you could be running on anxiety and not even know it. And I think that's everybody can kind of relate to that on some level, being in the unknown, in the space of uncertainty for such a long period of time, and the unexpected, the unpredicted. And that is like someone with anxiety, that's a nightmare, right? Because they really rely on some form of consistency. And if you already had anxiety going into 220, it probably exasperated it. And then for people who didn't have it, might be kind of getting an understanding of what it's all about. But as far as, so after emotional detox, and I framed out what exactly an emotional detox is, I wrote Emotional Detox for Anxiety. And it really, it talks about emotions, and how the way I define anxiety is an emotion attempting to be processed but can't, because we won't let it. And that's because we've resisted it, and we've learned to resist it. And boy, Mike, let me tell you, I mean, I cleanse, I'm constantly working with the cleanse. It's like all the time. And you wouldn't believe the systems people have in place subconsciously to avoid feeling. I mean, it's quite amazing when you start to unpack it and you start to look at just how entrenched it is, how much we've learned to do that. But then on the other side, when you teach people how to feel something, and an emotional detox for anxiety points out that feeling doesn't mean talking. And everybody kind of breathes a sigh of relief when I say that.
Yeah, yeah,
Because the talking, as you can see, just in 220, it doesn't really help that much, does it?
right,
And we've been
right,
talking about problems and situations, and I mean, really hasn't gotten us very far, Mike. I mean, if anything, it just gets us more angry, more upset that really we're still talking about this.
right.
We haven't, this isn't resolved yet. And so that's exactly what emotional detox for anxiety is about, is we need to stop talking about our emotions and start teaching people how to feel them.
Mm,
And because when they process them, they transform. And that's when the gifts come in. That's how it's tied to the other book. And more so than that, answers come, solutions come, unity comes, compassion comes, love comes, and safety, and everything that everybody desires comes. And it's all from processing our emotions.
wow, wow, that's powerful. And you said that key word, those the systems. I feel like
Yeah.
everything is so categorized. I work with and help coach, small business owners. And I think that's one of the
Mhm.
things is we so compartmentalize our lives, like every portion of it, right? Because we don't want to be businessman in front of our dad or in front of our kids, right? Or in front of our wife. We want to be husband, we want to be dad. And so we kind of
Yeah.
put these different hats on. And I think we do the same thing with our emotions, right? Because
Yeah.
there are certain individuals that we don't want to show, not necessarily the vulnerability, but I think it's like I don't want to be a downer in front of my kids, so I hide that, I suppress it. That's the word, suppress. So
Yeah.
even in myself, I've seen in past years where I have this system of suppression, and I know that
Yeah.
comes from growing up, right, where it's like guys don't cry, guys don't feel, we can be very reactionary. So to someone who may come to you and say, you know what, Miss Sherianna, I've been dealing, or yet not necessarily dealt with, but have managed and compartmentalized the emotions in my life. How do you begin to unlock that? I mean, because it just seems like
Yeah.
almost like an impossible task. Like in my mind, I'm like,
Yeah.
isn't that how do you do that to someone who has
Yeah.
not felt, who have not allowed themselves to feel?
Well, I use the cleanse every time and it's never failed me. I mean, you do it by beginning with the C and ending with the E, the
Mm,
steps. And it's really about, I've learned to just trust it. I've learned to trust that whatever is meant to be revealed through them will be revealed. And it's a process that I guide them through. But as far as how do you begin? Well, you it depends. Sometimes I begin with maybe something that's going on current, right? Something that's surfacing, knowing that it's connected to the past, right?
yeah,
Sometimes sometimes we begin right where we're at, right in that moment, just what it's like to even just be having a conversation about your emotions, to even get to the point where you're curious about them or wanting to know what to do. That everything is an opportunity to start to process. So I just kind of start where they're at. But it's interesting, Mike, the more I cleanse with people, the less I actually come up with a plan.
for sure.
As I just really allow their emotions, once they start processing, they really guide the session. And it's really fascinating. But the less I assume I know what they need
Mm,
or what's good for them or where I think they should be at, the better it
wow,
gets.
wow,
So I kind of go in with, I don't want to say an open mind, but kind of like I know nothing, to be honest with you, Mike. I
for sure.
just find that I really honor, if you really honor someone's emotions, you're going to let that dictate how that session is gonna go.
Wow, wow, that's pretty remarkable because I don't feel like I hear that much in our world and in our society nowadays. Like everyone has the
Yeah.
plan. Everyone assumes they know, right? They
Yeah.
get it and they kind of have these I don't even these molds that they kind of try to push everyone through, right? And so wow. So when someone goes through the cleanse method, first and foremost, it's not something that you go through one time and you're like, oh, I'm fixed, I'm healed, right? This is something that you can do repeatedly.
Well, it's not gonna be out for a while, but I in 2021, not till next fall, I did write Emotional Detox Now, which is 135 emotional detoxes. So people
Wow.
will be able to self-guide themselves.
Wow.
Um, yeah, that unfortunately won't come out till October, but
Yeah.
it exists and it will happen. Um, but as far as it is a practice, but you'd be amazed at how, I mean, I just was working with someone 4 times and already she's moved on. I mean, this is
Wow.
someone who was having panic attacks, who had to leave work, who had to take a leave of absence. And 4 sessions, I'm all set. I'm great.
Wow.
So I won't ever it's not like therapy. And again, I don't know how long it's going to be when I start with someone. It really depends on that person. Some people just enjoy it and want
Yeah,
to keep going because they just like to learn and they like the feeling of it. And some people, it's different. So
for sure.
again, I'm not really sure. I what I do say is don't underestimate it.
Mm, that's
The
good.
power of feeling, never underestimate it. And Mike, we put so many other people on pedestals and we put ourselves lower,
Yeah.
and I just think that's one of the patterns. Like we're
Wow.
trying to get somewhere or reach some level or
Yeah.
some level of expertise, and we realize they're incredibly
Mm,
powerful. And so I it just blows my mind what can happen with
yeah.
people when they open themselves up to it.
I can only imagine because I think managing expectations is something that we don't do very well as people naturally.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like when we have these people on pedestals, it's because of what we see. or have witnessed them accomplished in the now. Not necessarily that we see the journey to get to where they are, but we
Yeah.
see that and we think, okay, I need to do the steps that they're doing right now with the expectation that people will respond the way that they're responding to them. And
Right.
that brings in itself so much anxiety. I mean, I've fallen victim to that right there, that thing. And it's just like,
Yeah.
where do you, wow, there has to be so much freedom in this cleanse method. Let's talk about that. When it comes to like that lady, from the moment she came in before that, that first session to the time she's leaving that fourth session,
Mhm.
what is the amount of freedom that you witness in someone who was having panic? I mean, I've had panic attacks. Like having panic attacks, like that's a serious ordeal. That's something emotionally, logically holding you down. How did that? What did you witness in that?
Well, there's just a lot of awareness. There's a lot of
Mm,
connection between, again, emotional suppression, the management. I mean, panic attacks are just your body's way of managing emotions.
sure.
It just happens to be an extreme way, and it can be frightening for people. But it's really just seeing again what's nice about the cleanse. I'm teaching them a system that they are eventually knowing that I'm going to take the training wheels off and they're going to just go on their own.
Yeah.
And once you do it, the repetition, you do start to feel, okay, I'm understanding, what's going on
Mm,
here. So I think for that person, it's just sounded like I feel great. I feel good. I
yeah.
don't right? And so there's always room for looking at a little bit more, but I think it's really you feel stable, you feel whole, you feel like you have some skills,
For sure.
and I think that's really helpful when people walk away and they're like, "Okay, I have skills now
For
that I know
sure.
work for me, and I'm not afraid of my emotions anymore."
Mm,
That's freeing in itself.
wow. Wow. So when it comes to like your target client, your ideal client, who is
Mm.
it that you say, these are the individuals that I truly love to help?
I'm not a fan of ideal client, target client kind of stuff. I know, it's funny because my background is I'm a psychology professor. I do that very, very part time, but I have
Okay.
taught psychology for years, and emotional detox is kind of something. So I never got like the formal coaching training. I have to admit, I never got certified as a coach or anything. It's really something I created on my own. And I do work with a lot of coaches that will come to me, or even therapists will come to me, and because we're all human, we all need
Exactly.
support, right? And
Exactly.
the ideal client, this and that, I know I, for me, it, 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 it brings for, I have a hard time because I have to sort of judge the person,
Mm,
right?
for
I
sure.
have to say to myself, this is my ideal client. Well, what makes them an ideal client? There has to be a level of judgment. And if I'm judging, then I'm not really feeling.
Yeah, I understand.
And I just trust that God sends me whoever's supposed to be in my world. And I've never
Mm,
gone without. And there is a level of faith. Whoever
yeah.
is supposed to come. I mean, I just had someone the other day who came. He didn't even know I wrote books. I was like, "Did you read the book?" And he's like, "Oh, you wrote a book?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't even know you wrote a book." And it was like, how did you land here? Like,
Yeah,
where did you come from?
that's
And
awesome.
I just really believe that, God knows what we're up to and who could benefit from what and when
Yeah,
and how we're going to hear it. And someone might hear it from someone else better than they hear it or work with than me. So that's
for
kind of
sure.
how I operate is I let
Love it.
God decide how do I serve and who do I serve.
That's awesome.
And I've never been let down. So far.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So ultimately, if you are listening to this and you're saying, you know what, I've battled and am continuing to battle the emotions, the anxiety, and you think that an emotional detox is in store for you, is in place for you, please contact Miss Sherianna. Sherianna, what is the absolute best way for our listeners and our viewers to contact you?
Sure. I mean, it's my website, which is sheriannaboyle.com, is my primary website, which has all my books, my coaching classes that I will
Awesome.
do. And then the other website is called cleanselife.com.
Okay.
And that is all my yoga videos. So I do emotional detox in a yoga practice. And I
Awesome.
have those available for people if they want to experience that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that is awesome. So, guys,
Yeah.
in the show notes, I will have all of those links. So be sure to reach out because this is a big deal. And before we start kind of landing the plane here, when it comes to the physical, like the physical product that you get from having these emotional situations, let's talk about that for a minute because I actually had a client who
Yeah.
told me, he was telling me about these chest pains and the back pains, and now he kept going to the chiropractor, and it felt better for the moment, but then again, it would kind of cease up, tighten up, and I began to think like, man, this sounds like something that could be, emotional. It could be something that is a mental situation. And because I don't have the expertise that you have, I'm thinking like, okay, I think it's this, but I don't want to tell you this, right? What are some of those kind of implications that you've seen on the physical side of things because of holding on to those emotional situations in our lives?
I mean, I see a tremendous amount of, as far as the, again, making the connection. I mean, by the time it goes into physical pain, it's just a matter of the way it's manifested in that person.
Mm,
So it's suppressed emotions and the way they've manifested, but also what they've been focusing on, if they're very fear-based, if they have a lot of doubt, if they have, if,
mm,
if they're worried about their finances and things like that, how they, where their energy goes, where their attention goes, it will manifest. It's kind of like the law of attraction. It will manifest in some way. And sometimes it does go into a physical symptom like that. I think that, I don't believe in one fix. I think we need a layered approach,
for
but I
sure.
do think the emotions play a part in every physical thing out there,
Hmm.
mental, physical, anything stress related. You can't leave them out of the equation. I think I've seen people really get themselves off like sugar, things like that, where they self soothe themselves through eating, or they manage their emotions that way, and what they turn to, or alcohol, or whatever we do. I see a lot of that helping people to kind of change their lifestyle and try new things. It's all connected.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel like I can talk to you forever just because it's one of
We
those
could.
it's one of those topics that are just like, man, let's dive deeper into this. So guys, if you are truly looking to dive deeper and get help with your personal emotional detox, be sure to check out the show links below. Go to sheriannaboyle.com, check out what she has there, check out her yoga videos. Guys, I'm about to do a deep dive. I just met you, but now I have to go and kind of stalk you a little bit, right? And really get into this because I can see.
Likewise, my friend. I'd love to get to know your work too.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I can just see that what you are doing is truly helping and helpful to people. So I'm so thankful that you serve in this way. So, guys, again, follow Miss Sherianna Boyle. Go to her social media, stalk her like I plan to, and begin your journey. Begin your journey of emotional detox. Miss Sherianna, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Well, have a great day.